Okay, so now we come to the if-then technique. So much of our behaviour is on autopilot. It's an automatic response to a stimulus, which is to say that a particular context or situation will trigger a particular reaction in you. And this is a problem when your reaction is negative. For example, when the stress of being in traffic causes you to take risks or get aggressive. However, we can hack our stimulus response patterns for our benefit. And that's what the if-then technique is all about. So we can set it out, I'll break it down to steps again. We can set it out this way. First, consider a behaviour which you want to change. Then, consider the context in which it happens, in which that behaviour happens. That second thing, the context, we'll take that and we'll call that the if. That's the situation, the context. We'll call it the if. And the new behaviour which you desire, we'll call that the then. So the technique's simple. If that situation occurs, then you perform the new behaviour. And every time that situation occurs, you perform the new behaviour over and over. You practice it. It's like learning a musical instrument. It's like becoming good at a sport. You know, every day you sit down and practice. Well, that's what you do with this. You are your instrument. Eventually, this new behaviour will become natural. But not only that, the old negative behaviour will disappear. And this is great because the situation which used to cause problems now becomes a stimulus for the new behaviour. That old situation from which your problems would come, that old situation now becomes a situation in which your new good behaviours happen. It now causes positive things, whereas it used to cause negative things. And eventually this happens without you even thinking about it. So you've hacked your psychology, you've rewired your brain, you've broken the old pattern and created a new one. Okay, so let's take an example. Here's a situation. A person is rude to me. Here's the old response. I get angry, or maybe I get depressed, or maybe I get anxious, whatever it is for you. Okay, so when we practice the if-then technique, all of this becomes, the situation is, a person is rude to me. And the new response is, and let's insert one here, you could think of all sorts of things. Here's one. I recognise that this is about them, not me, and I just laugh it off. Water off a duck's back. Okay, so open up your journal and let's get concrete with some of this in your own life. Let's make this particular about you. So I want you to go to a clean new page and draw 2 lines from top to bottom, effectively breaking the page up into 3 columns. I want you to title the first column Situation. And I want you to title the second column Old Response. And I want you to title the third column New Response. So 3 columns, Situation, Old Response, New Response. In the Old Response section, I want you to take the quality. We were talking about that before. Write down all the negative reactions you have, or even the neutral ones that you want to turn into something else, that you want to make better. Write them all down and do it each on a different line. So you've left a bit of separation, you've left a line or 2 between each of them so that they're laid out right down the page. Give yourself room to work with them because we'll do more writing around that. Now, and you can go do this exercise in a moment, but now, okay, actually, stop, pause this book and do that now. Just write those out and then come back here in a moment. Okay, you've done that. Now go to the first column, the Situation section. Write down the contexts in which each of those old responses occur. So you're writing down the situations which trigger the things that you've written in the old response column. I'll give you time to do that. Hit pause and come back once you've done it. Okay, so now in the third section, write what you want your new positive responses to be in each of those situations. Again, hit pause and do that. Okay, how'd you go? The thing here is that each of these sets of stimulus and negative response and positive response can be turned into if-then practices. So these are going to be the basis of your practice moving forward now. These are your if-then practices. So here's one that I actually use. My stimulus or situation is that the computer goes haywire. So I have a typical negative response because I'm not very good with technology, and suddenly it's like chaos has exploded and I'm caught in chaos. My negative response is I get stressed and I express that in ways which sometimes can probably be offensive to others. I'm not rude to people, but I just get shitty. And if somebody's sensitive or takes things personally, then I've noticed sometimes people reacting negatively to that when I've done it around others. So that's my negative response to the situation of when the computer goes haywire. I have a positive response which I'd really like to have instead, and that's that I would remind myself of how to act. I'd take a breath, I'd put things into perspective, and I would keep my cool. So I'd use some of my strengths. Perspective is one of my strengths. I would take a breath, I'd just be cool about it basically, which is a kind of conscious, intentional choice of how to respond to it as opposed to that reactive, instinctual way I have. Okay, so that's my if-then. Now every time when the computer goes haywire, I let that serve as a prompt and a reminder to go into my new positive response. And I do that every time. And I've been doing that for quite a while now, and I reckon I'm probably 2/3 successful with that. Whereas often I'd get shitty, or I'd swear at the computer or whatever. But I'd say 2/3 of the time now, I'm precisely keep my cool, not only as a neutral thing, but because I'm positively stepping into being cool about this, being a bit of a stoic with it. So I've hacked my cranky bastardness and I've created this new chill demeanour, this stoical way of responding. As I said before, this acting as if technique works. So the first technique we use, the acting as if, that works well for arty sorts because it's visual, because it's similar to acting. And then this if-then technique appeals well to science types because it's a way of rewiring or hacking the stimulus response pattern. Now, I think about all this stuff in both ways. It helps me to do both, and I think they complement each other. But I've given you two so that you can do whichever is best for you. You might notice that there's a kind of real deep similarity between the two. Okay, so take your journal. Look again at those sets of stimulus and negative and positive responses and decide on making a project out of some of them. Probably the ones that really stand out most, that you most want to change. I'd say sort of take ones that you can actually change in the short, the immediate term to the medium term. And so the thing here is you're going to start transforming the negative responses into the positive ones. So take those ones I suggested, as many as you want, and maybe if you need to write them down a bit more neatly or think about them, do what you need so that you can now transfer them into the daily action section, which you've got at the back of your journal. Then I want you to commit to doing one of them each day this week. So you're going to be using situations that are quite common, that occur quite commonly. And then you're going to think of some shitty aspect of yourself that shows itself often or on most days. And you're going to let this become a theme in your mind, this change into the positive response. You're going to work on it as much as possible. And the thing is that you absolutely can change yourself this way. I've seen it done God knows how many times in terms of helping people as a counsellor, and I've done it in so many ways of myself. It really absolutely does work. It's one of the most, one of those things that has probably the greatest amount of evidence for it in psychology. Okay, so there's your project in terms of taking action. In the next chapter, we're actually going to kind of go a bit bigger picture with this. It's kind of based on the stuff we've just done today, and it's doing it at a bigger level in terms of philosophy. But I'll leave that for the next chapter, and I'll see you there.